and roll. All right. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you have the great pleasure of watching this session. I am so tickled on so many levels, especially in my heart, to share this space with one of my dear friends. Now, I know everyone's really active, and May is very important for us to try to be proactive with our health. The kind of tips and tricks for all the people that I've handpicked and that I've selected to be part of our extravaganza have very different approaches, but everything is the same in terms of their light. And that is what I really want to focus on for today's session is Chantel is like one of my nearest and dearest, bright light, magic sprinklers, I don't even know, fairy dust in all sorts of different places. And I think that I have a sunny disposition. And when I don't compare, but when I look to see what she's doing, I'm like, I need to level up. So with that said, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us, and welcome to our mental health extravaganza. How are you today?
Oh, I'm so good. Your energy is contagious and infectious as well. So thank you for always keeping it so safe, and welcoming for all. I really appreciate you and everything you do.
Well, thank you. I think it's really important. I mean, I think a lot of people, they get into like the whole, these are the lists and this is what I need to follow and, tick the box and everything like that. And a lot of people from a branding perspective or marketing perspective are like, just stop sharing the journey, just show the results. I'm like, but what fun is that? Because
Yeah.
everyone does that. So it's important that as part of that, when you're always showing, like the journey and you keep yourself safe. And once you know that you're safe, it helps you create these spaces for everyone else. Because at the end of the day, you're always safe in yourself, right?
Yes, you hope so, right? That's such a heal, like a totally healed, humanity is being that safe space so for yourself so you can be it for others. And it's just so magnificent to share something like that with the world. So
Absolutely. So one of the things that I mean, I admire so many things, but the biggest thing in my heart that I wanted to share is on how you represent the differently abled community. And I think that it's so hard for me to find the words. I have words for everything, but it's so difficult for me to find the words to correctly articulate the amount of gratitude and respect that I have for being one of those speakers. A lot of people within the differently abled community, they're invisible. They they don't have a voice and they're treated, you know, not as well because of a physical ailment or because of a mental ailment or because of an emotional ailment. And I think, you being a champion for the differently abled is very inclusive because it's not just the people that have like the physical impairments, but it's saying I'm actually special. Like look at my superpower. And maybe I'm oversimplifying your message, but I just big snaps for being able to number one champion that community and then number two just having such a strong message. So if it's okay with you, what was your motivation? How did you decide that this was the community you wanted to serve?
oh, well, thank you for that. That means a lot, and as I've started advocating and opening up doors and conversations, I realized that everybody is differently abled. You don't have to have invisible illness or a disability to just be different and unique. We're all unique in our own beautiful ways. And I think that's the beauty of everything that brings us together and helps us bridge the gap between people living with disabilities and people that don't require reasonable accommodation and accessibility options. So, why I fell into that is, well, one, I, have a long history of a battle with mental health issues. And it was always something in my head that I thought that everybody was just numb inside and had a dark place, a dark hole. But it wasn't until right after I had my son, I was 25, and it's only been like 6 years. And I lost my job. So I was, the hormones of everything that went through that. Also, the anxiety and stress of not having any kind of income or health insurance started to eat away at my body. And my immune system started to shut down. And I knew nothing about health and wellness. I mean, I was an athlete growing up and swimming and stuff, but we carb loaded and we didn't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. So it was such a new thing to me. And I lost my vision and I had to experience and navigate life without vision, which was talk about falling on your face because, You can't drive. You have zero independence at that point. You can't drive, you can't work, you can't do anything because the world isn't built for people like that. And then I lost my ability to walk. And it started with Charlie horses in my shins when I would go on my walks with my stroller and a dog on each side. And it turned into me dragging my legs until I literally had to crawl from room to room to get a bottle ready for my baby boy. And this ended up being a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, which has been the biggest gift of perspective because I had experienced almost every kind of accessibility issue, from hearing loss to mobility issues to vision loss and just everything in between, not being able to say my name because my brain was so fried. It was bananas. So when I started to heal, which was a really long process, it didn't happen overnight. I'm still, healing and growing forward. But I had to really make this shift because I was still unemployed. I still needed to apply for a job with a disability or, you know, a definite need for a reasonable accommodation or just people that understood the tolls that chronic illness and autoimmune disease and even seizures. If somebody at your workplace has a seizure, what are they going to do, right? They're probably going to freak out and call an unneeded ambulance. So
And
all of those,
add stress to the situation.
yes,
Very
and
traumatic.
it's beautiful because I didn't realize how much you can control when you take control, right? So having the dialogue and just being open about it and asking questions to people around you because it really helped to build a strong community. People started to respect me more than they had before. And instead of getting sympathy or just like, wow, you go through a lot, it was more like, I appreciate what you do. What can I do to support you? And it was just the coolest thing. So it was challenging getting a job. I don't think, I never ever got a call back when I had to submit an application because I checked that box. It says that I am disabled and require reasonable accommodation. But I started creating relationships with people who started referring me for jobs. And I haven't looked back. So my career just kind of blossomed. I started my own business and continue to give back as much as I possibly can to people, adults living with disabilities that want to work, that want to get in the workforce.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. From a personal perspective, I've always been mobile, so it's very difficult for me to kind of, I guess, relate to it. My uncle did have MS, and they thought it was Lyme disease. And I remember, when they were going through that process of, just all the motor functions just falling apart. It's disheartening because the mind can be very acute and very like on top of everything, but losing that connection for the mind is telling the body what to do and the body is just unable. And then sometimes even to a point where like you're losing bowel functions, and it's humbling because it's like you're changing diapers of like your baby, and then you're just like, well, I kind of need, similar help for like other things. And the hardest things to ask are, for help, to say, I'm sorry, I love you, and can you help me? So it's
Mhm.
sometimes not just a slice of humble pie, but it's the whole pie.
Oh, the
I'm
whole
sure.
pie, you know it.
And just putting everything into context, I think, and perspective, I would just like to honor the journey. A lot of people don't see the journey, they just see the finish line. And so coming from, losing all these different skill sets and mobilities, and then being able to pick yourself up and just say one thing at a time, one thing at a time, one thing at a time, and to kind of move through it, I think just shows a tremendous amount of resilience and just the magnitude of your heart. And so I just, want to take that moment to congratulate you, because that is the definition of a warrior journey.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, it's definitely, the story is still being written, right?
Oh, aren't we all? Aren't we all? Everything that we do right now is, 20 years, 25, 30 years in the making to get us to this exact point. so in
I can't
terms of
wait.
all so in terms of all of that, being a mom with differently abled, capabilities and stuff like that, how was it in terms of child rearing, like within the house? Were you able to kind of manage with your partner, or did you guys have to get assistance going in, or how did that kind of look?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. I mean, I did everything that I could to take
Yeah.
care of the little one, but I started having seizures and I couldn't hold him anymore.
Yeah.
So it was a very like it was a traumatic time. I mean, for lack of better words, because you are put into this position in a whole, your world is already flipped upside down, let alone an illness and then everything going crazy. But my husband, thank goodness, was so supportive. But in his, these things usually either bring people together or tear people apart. And originally, it actually kind of tore us apart because he was in this mindset of being like, if I don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist, right? So he kind of
Denial is
pretended
strong
things.
for a lot of people.
It does,
It's a coping mechanism for a lot of
it
people.
kept him so strong and so supportive, but at the same time it was like there was nothing wrong with me, like it was all in my head. And so I really relied a lot on my parents and my in-laws for a lot of that, but I realized how critical it is to drop all shame and ask for help. I used to be the most stubborn person ever that refused handouts, refused help, right? Like, I'm a strong independent woman, I got this. But no, when you ask for help, it's amazing the people that step up and how much stronger your relationships get.
Absolutely, because then you're human, you're not a machine. And it's just like, oh,
Yes.
you have feelings. Like, well, obviously, I mean, I'm a complicated flower.
Exactly. Yes.
I love that. So I guess just kind of like drawing the picture for everybody that, is either embracing a journey of differently abled capabilities to people that are trying to support others. I think this is a humbling kind of foundation to kind of allow everyone to see, figuring out, number one, figuring out who the support groups are and all the different things to kind of, I guess, help out, because it's different if
Mhm.
you're just losing all of your capabilities. If you're adding in the seizures as well, then there's safety concerns with making sure that you're safe, also your family is safe, and then being able to do the best that you can and just saying, this is all I got today, and it is what it is. And let's tap into like the mindset, because there's so many moving pieces. I'm sure you could have felt a certain way on motherhood. You could have felt a certain way on, you know, parenting. You could have felt a certain way on being a wife. I don't know. Like, I'm just making assumptions on all these different things that could have made it harder for you. But
Mhm.
again, you have such a bright light. How do you navigate all of that? What was like your mantra, or what was like your go-to?
So it was everything. I mean, mindset was literally my saving grace. It was that tiny little sliver of hope that I needed, right? Because I was diagnosed with this incurable disease, basically a cancer of your nervous system that's usually irreversible. And they give you this diagnosis and they send you home. And it's like, they don't give you any hope. They don't give you any like medication or
That
anything like
sentence.
that. And it was really, the grieving process of it was devastation, because especially somebody who has mental health, a history of mental health obstacles, I hit rock bottom. And I remember calling the hospital and saying, I need some kind of medicine or something to just give me hope to get through the night, because I have nothing. How can I be a mom? How can I be a wife? How can I be a daughter when everybody around me just looks at me with pity and sadness? And they said at that point, if you really are this desperate, you need to come in and admit yourself right now.
Mhm.
And to me, that was kind of a wake up call. Like, is this really the path I plan to take? And, you know, after that, I get off the phone with them and I think about it and call mom, right? Because who do you call when you're
Of course.
25?
Of course.
Your
Mom's
parents.
always in your corner. They always have your best
Oh,
interest in mind.
yes, my biggest support system. So, and mom just said, you know what, Chantel, you just need rest. You need to go and you need to sleep until you can no longer sleep, until your body's like, I just need to get up and get out. And I slept for, I think, like 2 or 3 days, just relaxing. And my parents took care of the child, and my husband took care of other things. And
Yeah.
when I woke up, I felt like a veil had been lifted. I didn't feel good by any means,
Yeah.
but I felt like I had clarity.
Yeah.
And that's when I really had to decide how I could understand the brain
Mhm.
so that I could hopefully understand this disease a little better. And
Yeah.
that's when I found, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, the power of mindfulness and meditation and
Absolutely.
diet galore.
Yeah.
And thankfully, my father was going through some stuff too with neuropathy and neurological issues. And we kind of studied it together. And
Good. A new
um,
shared hobby is important.
yes, it brought us together too. So, I mean, I really did everything from severe neural plasticity exercises where I was constantly reworking my brain to make it more positive, to rewire it so that my brain could function, so that I could lift my leg up, so that I could, enunciate words instead of slurring things together in a weird sort of
Right.
necklace.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, but I mean, that mindset was critical. So the neuroplasticity was really just rewiring your thoughts, any kind of thought that you process through your brain, which I think they say about 80% of our thoughts are negative.
Mhm.
So if you think about that, what is that doing to your body? Right?
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
that was
Absolutely.
kind of the challenge then, was to change every single negative thought into a positive one. And it was irritating, really irritating at first.
Yeah.
But it started
It's
to
a
become
muscle. It's a muscle, and it's just you get bigger and bigger and bigger. And for the sake of everyone else that is listening to this, when you're kind of reprogramming yourself, and it sounds really complicated and really scientific, and it is if you're a scientist, but we're going to keep it simple for us. And so, an exercise that I like to do to kind of showcase neuroplasticity is if you have like your hands in front of you, and then you have, let's see if I can get it set up. So it's like a finger up and then a thumb, and then you go side to side, and then it's really difficult to be able to do
wait,
this.
this
Yeah. And then you go this way. And then eventually you can do it without
wait.
thinking. But I mean, just an example. So that's on how you create new pathways. And that's on how you are able to kind of like expand the mind. I mean, you can apply it to anything with, thinking, switching from, you know, negative to positive. I don't believe in negative and positive. I think that what's going to serve you. And so this is a simple exercise, complicated process
No.
to help with building all those new pathways. And Chantel is a living, breathing manifestation of being able to rework and rewire like the entire mind and reset the entire system. But for the sake of everyone else that is taking like those baby steps, this is an
Mhm.
example, with like the thumbs and the fingers. I think they call it the thumb challenge, and you guys can Google that, or we'll put a link in the bio. I don't know, and that's something that
Yes.
you guys can do.
I think another really cool exercise is to just be more conscious about your thoughts, right? So anytime you do have a negative thought, challenge it with a positive. That's what I did. So anytime, like, oh, it's so cloudy out today. Well, you can look up at the clouds and you can see the patterns and how beautiful they are and how
Yeah,
gorgeous the world is illuminated with
absolutely.
overcast. And
Yeah,
keep counting those blessings and all of those
absolutely.
positives, because that really is a massive mindset
Yeah,
switch. So easy to
yeah,
do, right? It's just
absolutely.
thinking. That's all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that a lot of it is also you have to be really careful on what you surround yourself with. Because if society is kind of, I guess, wired us to think negative and think, fear based for everything. If the mind is like a parachute, when you're scared, it's not open. So you can't see anything. It's just, this is the only perceived solution is right here, which is why people get stressed out. When you're in a state of abundance or positivity or, openness, then anything, literally anything is possible. And you see all these different things that kind of go around. And so I think, from that, you got to be really careful, not just on how you're treating yourself, but also what you're allowing into your space. You're the master of your universe. Not everyone deserves tickets to front seat.
Yes. I agreed. Preach.
Whether it's the news, because a lot of like my clients, the first thing that I ask if they're trying to make that switch from like mindset, like how much TV do you watch? And what type of TV do you consume? And the news is a massive, thing. And even from the subconscious mind, people that are sleeping and they keep the TV on, or if they keep any of that, that's getting straight into your subconscious. That's why you're going to make your life harder.
Yeah.
And so little things like that I know have helped me. It's like, I love the fact that you're just like, okay, something happens quickly, name 3 positive things, and before you know it, you're just like, I don't have any negative things. You're like, oh my goodness, the clouds are dancing right now. It's kind of amazing.
Exactly. I mean, it really is. It's really a high on life. It's just being so thankful. And I don't think that you have to lose all of your, you know, abilities in order to be so thankful. I think anybody can do it so long as you put in the work and realize that it's possible to be happy. It's possible
Absolutely.
to enjoy life and love yourself.
It's a choice.
And when that happens, isn't that a miracle? It's like just the best gift ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, it also kind of, taps into society or like the community rather. So it's easier to have that flip flop in between, what serves you and what doesn't serve you if you have that community that's kind of nudging you along just a little bit. But for people that don't have that, it takes such it's a different level of discipline to kind of audit on a constant
Mhm.
basis because you're blessed that you had family and in-laws that were able to support. I know a lot of people that don't because if they don't make that switch or that shift from this is the situation that I'm in, how do I fix it? Then that's a lost cause because there's always going to be people out there that are asking for handouts rather than hand-ups, right? And so I
Mhm.
think that's like in my personal experience being an outsider is one of the reasons why sometimes it's difficult to ask for help because either you get treated like you're incompetent, which is just annoying and unreasonable, or people they're not trying to empower you. They're almost like
Right.
keeping you in like that space. And to me, it's a very uncompassionate way to be like, okay, this is what I think you need versus how can I support you?
Yeah.
And so, in your
Absolutely.
experience, since you do already have like that established thing, the people that you serve and the people that you work with, 'cause I know you also do workshops, if I'm not mistaken, because you're like all over the place with everything magical. What is like one of the biggest hurdles that a lot of people within the differently able community kind of get stuck with?
Well, one, I think it's definitely shame, right? So dropping shame and actually asking for help or being okay asking for help. Two is grieving because you don't have to lose somebody to grieve. You can lose part of yourself to grieve. And that healing process is critical, especially if you've gone through something so traumatic. You need to live in that pain and take time to grieve in order to get over it and through it. So for a diagnosis, it's no different. Or for losing a part of you, an arm, a limb, your sight, it's no different. You need to take that time. And then the third, I think, would be the fact that we, by nature, human nature is we compare ourselves. It's a defense mechanism. It keeps us alive to be able to see what people are doing so that we can do better ourselves or change ourselves. And when you are going through something like this, any kind of trauma, any kind of illness, you can't compare your
Yeah,
case to somebody else's. Everybody's different. We all have different bodies, ecosystems that create us, and we have to care for our little living organisms inside of us a little differently.
like
So,
protect
isn't
our
that
garden,
crazy?
protect our
I feel
garden.
Yes, I feel like the human body is literally a solar, like it's literally a universe because there's so many organisms in
Truth,
us. It's
truth right there.
beautiful.
Truth.
So beautiful.
We have, and that's the thing that, being a wellness like practitioner, living in Asia for 11 years and, growing up in the US, I feel very blessed because I'm able to see, different adaptations of different mindfulness practices and ways of living
Yes.
and stuff like that, which I just think is incredible. And when we come to the US, it's yes, I agree with you. A lot of comparison. So it's almost like spirituality has become a competition, which I find really
Mhm.
interesting. And a lot of it is looking on the external world rather than the internal world. So the simple fact that you focus on grief and, different aspects to like shame and grief are all internal like things, right? Once we break through those barriers, number one, give it a name, number two, move through it, then it doesn't have power over us. And I think
Yes.
that is like a normal thing when you're in Asia oversimplified, because a lot of it is how can I be my person and add value and contribute into society? Whereas when we're in the US, how can society help me be a better
Right.
person? So, in
Right.
context of what you just said on the power within, sorry, long winded point around the block, but the point is we do have untapped and unlimited capacity. We are part of the universe whilst also having the power of the universe within. So we can
Yes.
always get through anything. And it's proof in terms of different parts of the world because they live it, breathe it, and do it.
I love it. Yes. I mean, it's like just, I don't know, uplifting and incredible to actually realize that you have power. You can control more than you think you can. And when you start to realize that and you experience it, it's just, I don't know, pure magic, for lack of
Absolutely.
better words.
But
Yeah.
it's truth because I think, a lot of people, once their body starts falling apart, you know, I'm not going to say I'm anti-medicine because I think there's a time and a place for everything. But if you're constantly putting things on top of it rather than allowing your body to say, what do you need right now? It kind of almost makes
Yes.
the journey sometimes a little bit harder. I mean, there's a time, again, there's a time and place. I'm not saying I'm anti-medicine. I'm just saying you got to
Yes.
know what you need.
Oh, yes, I can give you a perfect example of that. So, when I was first diagnosed, I was given this injection for my multiple sclerosis. And like, I have to say that every case is different. There's no one size fits all. It's all just, trial and error, trial and error. And I had a lot of errors. And the first medicine I went on started to give me seizures. And that's when I started to like just completely wither away. I had seizures, I had heart attack symptoms, I had started to get heart disease, all because of this medication. And I was like, this is doing more harm than good. We can't do this. So move on to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, until I realized that all of these things were making me so sick. I mean, everything from asthma to cancer to heart disease again, and stroke, like massive, massive increase in probability for that. With blood clots. And I'm thinking, well, I'm only, this was before I was even 30. And
Yeah,
how am I dealing with what 90-year-olds deal with? This is bananas.
absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
ended up pulling myself off and just really focusing in on so many other things. But you're right, there is no one size fits all approach. There is no, this is good for, this person, this is good for this person. It's so hard. You really have to be your own
Absolutely.
best advocate. And I think that's
Absolutely.
something that everyone in the differently abled community has to master, is
Yeah,
finding your voice and being a boss, standing up and being tough and laying down
absolutely.
the law when you don't feel
Absolutely.
right and you need somebody to know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important, latching on to that. Yes, the trick, everyone's, trying to find their voice, but the trick is you got to own it. You got to be like, I'm messy, I'm sloppy, I don't have my stuff together right now, and that's okay. This is where I'm going, and this is where I'm at today. And I think, there's such a tremendous satisfaction because if you're nervous or if you have shame around something, then you're constantly kind of scared of like, oh, I'm gonna get found out. Or like this is where the imposter syndrome and all other stuff comes in. But when you own it and you shed light on that and you're just like, yeah.
This is what you see is what you get. Sorry.
Yeah. And
Or
it's
you're
just
welcome, right?
it's kind of liberating at the same time because it's just like, yeah. And then ego, this is where healthy ego comes in and you're just like,
Healthy
yeah, these
ego.
these are the things that I'm dealing with. And watch, or you want to, poke fun, that's okay. I'm going to use that as fuel because I'm going to go straight to the top. And I had a couple extra steps. Watch.
Yes.
So healthy ego
Authenticity.
I think is so important for any kind of
It's
warrior
such a
journey.
superpower. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's healthy ego or if it would just be like a strong confidence, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when really you embrace all that you are and
Yeah.
nobody can tear you down or pick you up. And you're so mentally strong, mental warrior, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just to kind of go back to healthy athlete, having all these different things. By the way, I think your soul is a complete badass. Sorry, I probably shouldn't swear. Um, is an absolute warrior because your soul picked this life and was just like, we got this. Like,
We
we
got
totally
this.
got this. Like, why would you ever question it? We totally got this.
I
So
love it.
your soul's pretty gangster. I'm just gonna say.
You should have seen her 15 years ago. I don't think you'd say the same thing. You'd be like, this girl, she's making some bad decisions.
She's getting you ready. She's getting you ready.
True, 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 true. Yep.
And then all of a sudden being able to get through everything, I think that is another level of just being able to honor the warrior journey, is because if you're going through all these different things, and as you reference, a 90-year-old dealing with this, it's not to say that it's not important, but in context of society, we also have this understanding that the body breaks down after a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so, since your body was breaking down at like an earlier age than what is understood by society, this is where it becomes like an abnormality for society context, which actually is superpower if we're just like
Yeah.
reframing everything, because I think everything's a superpower. And so, being able to harness that, and I also firmly believe that every time that you use your voice, you give somebody else permission to also find theirs. And so I think
Yeah.
that's another level that I want to commend you on, is by being able to own that part of you. It's an aspect of you, but it doesn't define you. I think is a very gentle line that a lot of people struggle with. I struggle with that all the time. And
Mhm.
being able to share that light with everyone else, it's pretty magical. So snaps to you again.
Oh, thank you.
So anybody that's kind of going through any kind of differently abled thing, what would be your number one best tip for them outside of, just own it and find your voice? But if
Mhm.
there's like when you're in that darkest moment and you're having, I don't know, you're going to the bathroom, you're brushing your teeth, you're in like that moment where you can possibly go dark, but you need to, you're not quite disciplined enough to, name three positive things. What is like the
Yeah.
one comforting thing that you've been able to sit with that might be able to help someone else?
Oh, I love that. When I was going through this, I found my anchor, right? Because embracing the grieving process, you're a mess. Like you will sit in this shower and cry for like an hour just to get it out of the system. And my anchor is my son, that little baby that like just relied on me. I mean, literally fed off of me for months. So that was a big thing for me, is just holding on to that hope and that thing that I loved more than anything in the world, that loved me more than you could ever imagine. And having that love and wearing that like a security blanket or a cape, it
Yeah.
gives you so much power and strength. So I think everybody should find their anchor, whether that's a hobby that they're just obsessed with, like running is their love, or if they have a significant other or children or a pet that is there for everything, that anchor is really important. Spend
Yeah,
time with that anchor.
absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, sometimes when you have the opportunity to go dark, your mind and body will hijack it, and it will bring you to some wicked places if you're not careful. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't have that capacity or that strength or even that discipline to move forward. And so just to sit in that place sometimes is just as powerful, to just sit
Yeah.
there and just gotta hold on for just a couple more seconds, couple more seconds,
Yeah.
couple more seconds. Okay, tomorrow we're gonna move, but today we're sitting.
Yes.
So I think it's very important. I know that, you know, for the domestic violence space, a lot of the anchors or a lot of the things that people hold on to is, you know, it's that inner strength, that inner light. Yes, a lot of it is attached to children because you want to be a cycle breaker. You want to make sure that your children aren't going to be exposed to that. But
Right.
a lot of it is people thinking about themselves when they're younger. So it's when they think
Mm.
about themselves when they're younger and when they think about what do they need in that moment, it makes it easier for you to be gentle on yourself. Because a lot of
Right.
adults, we judge ourselves. We're harsh. We would never speak to a younger version of ourselves in the way that we speak to ourselves as adults. Never.
Right.
And so I don't know if that would like help you or anything or anyone in like in it's a different label community. I guess like asking for
Mhm.
insight because I know that it helps like some of the adults that I work with, um, just to be gentle and just
Yeah.
be like, okay, how are you talking to yourself right now? Like imagine
Yes.
yourself as an 8-year old. Like, would you be talking to your 8-year old version like that? Like,
Right.
get up, come on, you can do better. No, you don't. You're just like, all right, we're in pain right now. Let's just honor this
Mhm.
moment and then we can move forward. Is that clear? I don't know. I felt
Yes,
like
it
a little
totally.
lumpy.
Absolutely. No, so the way that I envision that grief or that darkness is a storm, right? Like adversity comes in seasons. Just because we're good today doesn't mean we won't relapse in the future with our illness or with addiction or with whatever. So the seasons are that storm, right? That's your darkness. But your anchor is like your umbrella, right? You're still going through the storm. You can't get out of the storm. It's still there. But that there's that one thing that keeps you safe, right? And that can be the perception of who you were and how you would treat them to keep them delicate. Or it could be that
Right.
one thing that keeps you so safe, which is just
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with love, even if you're just crying in a room full of loved ones. I've done that before too and couldn't,
Everyone has.
girl, I couldn't even stop. It just kept coming out. I don't know. But
That's
yeah,
your soul. That's
that
your
was my
soul saying
umbrella.
thank you. That's your soul saying
Yeah.
thank you. Finally, finally, we can breathe here.
Thank you for loving me. Don't leave this room for the next 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's so incredible. So yeah, so just to kind of like summarize, always do your best if you have that capacity to, something is dark, try to think of three opportunities or three positive things to kind of offset that thing. Always try to find your anchor. If that anchor is helping you move, great. If the anchor is just helping you stay exactly where you are, that's cool too. And then being able to just like take it one thing at a time. And Chantel, like nutrition, diet, food, all these different things, they definitely play a big role in recovery. And so when you
Oh,
were getting medical assistance, did you have anybody that was helping you with nutrition?
no. I actually had my client at the time. He saw my seizures and was really concerned about that at the workplace. And also the fact that I couldn't walk. And he said, you should check out the keto diet. And I know this was before it was a fad, because he said that so many epileptic patients are on this eating regimen because it helps their bodies and their brains trigger, their synapses a lot more effectively. And so literally 2 weeks after I went keto, and it was brutal. I mean, like the digestive shift that happens in it, ooh, not pretty. But I could walk after 2 weeks. I could walk around the whole block by myself for the first time since my diagnosis. I stopped having seizures. I haven't had a seizure in like a year and a half, because I cut out,
Yay.
yes,
Yay.
but I cut out a lot of those sugars that I didn't realize were so harmful on my nervous system.
Yeah.
Again, everybody's bodies are different. Some people love like hard carbs. Some people's bodies hate gluten, and or dairy or whatever. Just
Yeah.
figuring out what works for you and estimate, or like just experimenting. Fall in love with science and your body as the main organism that you're experimenting with, and you will see some magic things happen.
Absolutely. I love that because like for me, you don't want to be around me if I don't have bread. Like
Yeah.
I take hanger to like a different level. It's just like, Jazz, eat this loaf. Like, just go, just eat this loaf, have this pound of pasta. We're good. So like,
Oh, I love it. I love
but
it.
it's,
That's how I'm with
I,
like proteins. Like I need a
yeah,
lot of protein or I
yeah.
get hangry, like just ouchy. It's
My body's just like,
terrible.
come on, we know what we're doing right now. Why are you withholding? This is not cool. So
Exactly.
in terms of like the proteins and stuff like that, do you focus on like plant protein or animal protein or like what types of things do you have?
I started to get really snobby about a lot of this because of
It's not
all of the
snobby. It's not snobby. It's particular. This is your
true
temple. It's
creating
particular.
boundaries. Yes. So GMOs, and I started to get really familiar with eating organic specifically because of the different chemicals that you put in your body. It's not going to be received well, as well as I wanted a lot of fish because of the fish protein, the fish oil, the omegas. All of that was really important to my brain health. But the mercury levels get so high, so you got to find the right kind of fish, right? And
Always gotta
have the
find that
balance.
balance.
It's just craziness. But fish and eggs, I mean, I could live on that stuff all day.
Absolutely. I'm this close to getting my own chickens. Like, you have no idea. I'm just like in apartments in the city, they tell you about cats and dogs, but there's nothing about chickens. And I'm like, can I get away with
Maybe.
this?
Is it going to be a quiet chicken?
There's something, I romanticize a lot of things in my world. I'm like, there's something kind of fun about like, here's my chicken. I'm collecting the eggs today.
That's a family member right there. Yeah, they're
Right?
providing for the household. It's like paying
Rent
for
free,
rent.
rent free because they got laid eggs. We're good.
Exactly, exactly.
I love that. I love that. So Chantel, thank you so much for, shedding some light into like the personal side of different things. I know it's not easy for like that whole journey. Obviously, you've gone through it and come out beautifully because you can talk about it without shifting. You can talk about it with such grace and you can talk about it with such humility and just, love. And so, yeah, I want another compliment to you on being able to get through all these different curveballs that, your soul picked because it wanted to prove to you that you're a warrior.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Keeps it interesting.
absolutely. Absolutely. So now that everyone has obviously fallen in love with you, let's talk about what are some of the things that you're up to professionally and how can people get into your diary?
Yes. So, I mean, professionally, what I did was I started growing on social media and finding my love for social media because it was my microphone for venting about these things, for being an advocate and a supportive person in the fight against discrimination and unconscious bias and so many other things. And because of that love that I found, I grew my business in social media strategy, distribution, management, and personal branding too. So people living with any or just any kind of transition in life that need to build a brand to level up their success. That's what I do. And we also give 50% of all of our proceeds that we make. It's Stardust Creative is my business name. We give back to people living with disabilities that are also seeking those kinds of services. So we do that pro bono for them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I mean, that just goes to, reinforce again what I've said in the very beginning on your monstrous love and zest for life and this bright light that, you've tapped into the core of the universe and you've done everything that you needed to do in order to transcend anything that life sent you. And it's beautiful. And so
Oh, thank you. I feel
thank
like
you for, just being. Thank you for just being.
there's so many gifts. I've gotten so many gifts. I feel like I need to give back. Thank you.
I think when you're going through it, it's really hard to kind of, number one, realize what gifts you actually offer to the world. And so I think from the physical world perspective, you can get defeated and you're just like, I don't know, I'm not really contributing. But then once you get through that, maybe tapping into the positivity that you were talking about with, finding the silver lining, then being able to kind of move through it. Everyone needs to hire you, obviously, because you can help them do that. And it's like, well, you can do it by yourself, or if you want some help, we got you, no problem.
Yes, leaning into that purpose has been so empowering, right? Like finding my niche and doing it. It's just, I want everybody to feel that. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I think like once you get to that stage too, it's like the best kept secret that you just can't stop talking about. You're just like, come on, I'll show you everything.
Come to the dark side with the light side. It's the light side.
Yeah, you're riding unicorns and like jumping over
eating
rainbows,
cookies.
whatever. People are just like, "What do you have for breakfast?" And you're just like, "Clean food." I don't know.
The best stuff.
I drink my water. I stay away from problems. I'm good.
Oh, life is beautiful.
So, what is the best way where do you hang out the most? I know that you're very active in LinkedIn. So, where is like the number one place that you would like people to come and find you?
Well, I'm on all the socials because I'm a social media person.
I know.
You can find me anywhere. Yes, LinkedIn, I love it because it's professional and I feel like it's a safer space for most people to really open up. So that's why I love LinkedIn, but I'm everywhere.
Cool. I'll get all the links so that people can, reach out to you, whether it's people within the differently abled community that are looking for a little bit of a bright light and kind of a little bit of maybe a path, because it's a path less traveled, but it's not untraveled. So you were able to kind of guide them through that. And then for any companies, I know that a lot of people, they're doing diversity and inclusion, and diversity and inclusion doesn't always include differently abled. So this is something that could be very powerful for corporates to hire you from an experience basis of how to be a little bit more inclusive, so that the diversity and inclusion is actually inclusive.
Yes.
And then also for like the individuals, so any individuals that are kind of going through like that rebrand or kind of blossoming and opening up into different things, you can help them kind of put those strategies together so that they could feel empowered in order to kind of reintroduce themselves to the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So number one, mental health favorite quote.
Oh,
I know there's so many.
You're making my damaged brain function.
I can feel all the dancing in your head, and you're just like, but there's so many.
There's so many. I know. I'm thinking of Jay Shetty right now. Like, what would Jay Shetty say? Because he's always whipping out those quotes, I think it's something that also is a foundation for anybody that's real spiritual, right? Like one of the things that helped me growing up in my mental health journey was the quote, "This too shall pass," because it will. It'll pass.
Absolutely.
So
I love it.
that'll
Simple,
do.
simple,
We'll use that one.
simple, simple. I mean, sometimes you got to get back to basics. Like for me, that's what I try to help people with self-mastery, because it's great to have like all these gadgets. It's great to have like all these different things, but when you get back to basics, and this too shall pass is probably one of the most basic mantras to help you with navigating a storm, weathering a storm, getting through the different seasons, understanding the journey, because a lot of people see it as this is everything.
Yeah.
And if it's part of the process, this too shall pass
It's
is,
digestible. Yeah.
yeah, because you're moving through it. Like everything's moving.
Yes.
Let's get it going. So I think that's it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, just another compliment to you. I can't say enough good things. So thank you. It's been truly a blessing and an honor to share some space with you. And on behalf of Mental Health Extravaganza, thank you. On behalf
Thank
of
you.
anybody within the differently abled community, thank you. On behalf of anybody who is an ally or is looking to find tangible ways to be a little bit more compassionate or a little bit more supportive and maybe help the people within their community that are differently abled find their voice, thank you. And just on behalf of every decent human being out there, thanks for being another decent human being.
Likewise, Jessica, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And happy Mental Health Awareness Day or month,
Month.
every day.
Yep. Every day is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.